There is a man named Bear who has quietly fallen for one of his coworkers, a woman named Niki. For a while now, he has been planning to tell her exactly how he feels. But before he does anything, he decides to run the idea past his two other friends, Ian and Sarah. And the moment he explains how he wants to confess, both of them cringe. The way Bear plans to do it sounds embarrassing, almost laughable, and they warn him that if he goes through with it, he is going to look ridiculous. Sarah suggests that instead of pouring his heart out, Bear should buy Niki something nice, a small gift, something that might win her over. Ian, on the other hand, tells him to drop the poetic approach entirely. They both know Niki is not the kind of person who melts over romantic speeches. So as a guy, Ian gives Bear some practical advice. Build an emotional connection first. Take her out for a drink, spend real time with her, maybe even go on something that feels like a date. And to top it off, Ian recommends that Bear use their usual hangout spot as the place where he finally says everything out loud. Not long after that conversation, Bear heads home. And the moment he walks through the door, he finds something horrible. His cat, Sandy, is dead. It seems the poor animal accidentally swallowed one of Bear's pills that had fallen on the floor. Bear quietly cleans the spot where his cat had been lying, then carefully places the little body into a plastic bag. And once that grim task is done, he just lies down and starts scrolling, quietly stalking Niki's Instagram like nothing happened. Right in the middle of that, his phone rings, and it is Niki calling him. What Bear does not know is that Niki actually meant to call someone else that night, a friend named Tay. But Tay was busy, so Bear became the backup. Niki asks him to come out to their usual spot. At first, Bear turns her down, saying he has something to take care of. But then Niki drops a bombshell. She tells him she wants to quit her job. And while they are talking, Bear hears her suddenly cry out on the other end of the line. Her crystal necklace has slipped and fallen straight down the sink drain. Bear glances at the clock, and in that instant, Ian and Sarah's advice comes rushing back to him. Something clicks. He decides that tonight, right now, is the perfect time to finally tell Niki how he feels. So Bear heads out to a store to buy a replacement for the necklace Niki just lost. And while he is there, something catches his eye. It is a strange little toy called One Wish Willow. According to the packaging, it can grant a single wish to whoever owns it, as long as they snap it into two pieces. Bear finds the whole thing oddly fascinating, so without thinking too hard about it, he grabs one. Out of curiosity, he asks the shopkeeper whether customers who buy this toy ever come back to complain. The shopkeeper tells him it is really just a collector's item, and that most people who buy it never actually break it open. So Bear assumes the obvious. It must be a gimmick, a little scam, something that does not really grant any wishes at all. But then the shopkeeper adds something chilling. The people who do come back to complain, he says, only do so because someone close to them ended up dead. Bear brushes it off and heads to meet Niki. But when he arrives, she is not waiting for him. She is busy chatting away with Sarah instead. So Bear signals to Ian that tonight is the night he is finally going to confess. Ian takes the hint and gently pulls Sarah away, leaving Bear alone with Niki at last. Just like Ian coached him, Bear invites Niki to have a drink, cracks a few jokes, and slowly gets her to loosen up and warm to him. Then he starts trying to say the words, but every single time he opens his mouth, something cuts him off. First the bartender, then Ian himself. The interruptions keep piling up until Bear finally gives up on the confession entirely. Instead, the group ends up raising a toast to Sandy, Bear's cat who had just died. And when Sarah hears the news for the first time, she instantly pulls Bear into a hug. Since it is getting late, everyone decides to call it a night, and Bear offers to walk Niki home. On the way, Niki feels genuinely sorry about Sandy. She tells Bear he should have called her, that she would have wanted to be there to comfort him. Bear admits that work is going to feel completely different once she is gone. Niki confesses that leaving her job is hard for her too, but at the same time, there is this pull inside her, a desire to finally start writing, to create something big and meaningful with her life. And as they walk, Bear lets slip that he brought something for her. When they reach her front door, Niki mentions that Sarah had been asking about Bear's ex. Then she turns the question around and asks him how he really feels about Sarah, because it is pretty obvious to everyone that Sarah has a thing for him. Bear tells her he only thinks of Sarah as a friend, nothing more. Niki starts walking toward her door, and that is when Bear calls out to her, using a nickname she absolutely hates. He calls her the freak Niki. She spins around, clearly annoyed, and then she asks him point blank whether he likes her. Because if he does, this is the moment to just say it. And unbelievably, after all that buildup, Bear panics and says the opposite. He tells her they are just friends, nothing more. Niki accepts that, and disappears inside her house. Bear stands there feeling like he just threw away the biggest chance of his life. And in that moment of regret, he pulls out the one-wish willow. He whispers a wish into it, asking for Niki to love him more than anything else in the entire world. And then he snaps the little toy clean in two. One wish changes everything. This is obsession. That is when things start to feel wrong. Niki, who should already be inside her home, suddenly stops dead in her tracks by the door. She turns and walks back toward Bear and asks for the thing he promised to give her. Bear scrambles for an excuse and says he left it back at his place. And right away, Niki's behavior starts to feel off. She insists on coming inside to comfort him about his cat. Then she goes even further and says she wants to come home with him. Bear figures she must be drunk, because this is nothing like the Niki he knows. She tells him that her father is dying and that everything in her life feels unbearably heavy right now. So in the end, Bear brings her back to his place. And the moment she steps inside, she inhales deeply and says the whole house is soaked in his scent. Uncomfortable, Bear tries to set up a separate room for her to sleep in. Niki apologizes for acting so strangely. But then, out of nowhere, she begs Bear to sleep beside her, saying her mind will fall apart if she is left alone in that room. So he agrees.
What the fuck?
And for a moment, Niki suddenly snaps back to normal, as if she just realized what they were doing. But it does not last. Seconds later, that strange spell seems to grip her again, and she bursts into tears with no warning at all. That night, Bear tries to dig up information online about whether the one-wish willow actually works, but he finds nothing that satisfies him. Some people swear the thing does absolutely nothing. Others claim their wishes really came true. And through all of it, Niki keeps asking him to lie down next to her. When morning comes and Bear wakes up, Niki is gone from the bed. He goes looking for her and finds her outside performing some kind of small ritual, a little ceremony for the death of his cat. Watching her, Bear feels deeply uneasy. It is strange, unnatural, and honestly a little disturbing. Back at work, Bear tells Ian everything that happened. He explains how completely different Niki has become, like she is buckling under some enormous emotional weight. She has grown incredibly sensitive, her moods shift in an instant, and sometimes she just screams out of nowhere. He also brings up her dying father. But Ian is confused because, as far as he knows, Niki has never really cared about her father. Their relationship fell apart a long time ago. Then Bear tells Ian about the night Niki suddenly kissed him and then broke down crying for no clear reason. Ian asks whether Bear ever actually confessed his feelings, because maybe that is what set Niki off emotionally. But Bear admits he never said a word, which only makes the whole situation feel even more bizarre. Instead of being happy, Bear is starting to feel afraid. When the workday ends and night falls, Ian offers to drive Niki home, saying he needs to grab some of his books. Bear takes advantage of that window to investigate. He wants to know if the drink Niki had that night could have caused the strange behavior she has been showing. But after checking, the answer is clear. The drink has no side effects like that whatsoever. Soon after, Niki comes back to Bear's place and apologizes for the way she acted the night before, after hearing from Ian that she had actually scared him. Bear asks whether she even remembers what happened. Niki says she remembers most of it and figures it was just the alcohol making her lose control. But then she accuses Bear of taking advantage of the situation. Bear denies it at first, and that is when Niki says something surprising. She admits that she genuinely likes how close they have become. She even confesses that she has known all along that Bear had feelings for her. Hearing this, Bear is overjoyed because it turns out his feelings were not one-sided after all. He asks her when exactly she started feeling this way. Niki tells him it started a long time ago and that the night before only made her more certain about what they could be together. She asks him to confirm that he truly loves her, and when Bear says yes, the two of them officially become a couple. From then on, they do not hide it. They show their affection openly, right in front of everyone. One night, while Niki and Bear are out on a date, Ian suddenly calls. Bear reluctantly takes the phone, and Niki's expression instantly sours. On the other end, Ian tells him he has been doing some digging about Niki's father, and what he found is that her father is not dying at all. There is nothing wrong with him. Bear is baffled about why Niki would lie about something like that. Ian suspects she was just fishing for attention. He also shares something he heard from Sarah, that Niki once said she only saw Bear as a little brother. Nothing more than that. This is where Ian starts to feel like something is genuinely wrong. He warns Bear that Niki might be planning something dangerous, something that could ultimately put Bear himself at risk. Bear returns to the table, and part of him wants to interrogate Niki about all of it, but he backs down, unable to bring himself to do it. At that exact moment, Niki hands him a gift, a tiger's eye stone. She claims it is a family heirloom, believed to boost a person's confidence. Bear asks why she is giving it to him, and she says it is because she loves him so much that she cannot live without him. So Bear presses her. He asks if she loves him more than anything else in the world. What he is really trying to find out is whether his wish actually came true. And to his amazement, Niki says yes. She insists she loves him more than anyone. Then Bear carefully brings up her father again, the one she claimed was dying. But Niki suddenly starts talking without any control, deflecting, insisting that this is a romantic moment and they should not be discussing things like that. Bear has no choice but to drop it and let the questions go. Later that night, Bear wakes up and Niki is not beside him. Instead, she is standing in the corner of the room, wearing his jacket. She is crying, and she tells him she dreamed that he did not love her, the complete opposite of how she feels. Bear, now genuinely frightened, tries to calm her down, telling her he does love her and asking her to come back to bed. But then Niki starts screaming again, demanding to know why he does not love her, pacing quickly and hiding behind a flower vase.
Why don't you love me?
Niki, what are you doing?
Just as suddenly, she goes calm again and lies back down beside him. Bear wants to slip out of the room right then, but the moment he moves, she screams once more, forcing him to stay. The next morning, Bear wakes up to find that Niki has cut his hair while he slept. He immediately warns her that she can never do something like that again, but Niki only gives him a strange, unsettling smile. Bear asks her to stop doing all these unnatural things, watching him while he sleeps, moving around in those eerie ways. And Niki promises she will not do it again, and that if she ever slips, she will apologize. For a brief moment, Bear feels a little relief and gets ready to leave for work. But when he tries to open the door, he finds it sealed shut, taped over completely.
Love you.
He has to force it open, and Niki just calmly tells him he could always stay home if getting out is too difficult. Bear finally pries the door open and leaves for work, and the moment he is gone, Niki's face twists into a stiff, terrifying smile. At work, Bear opens the lunch Niki packed for him. Inside, he finds a photo of himself and Sarah, as if Niki wanted to make a point about how much she dislikes their closeness. Sarah notices Bear looking gloomy and asks what is wrong. He brushes it off, says it is nothing, and keeps eating his lunch. Then he brings up what Sarah had said earlier, about Niki only seeing him as a friend. Sarah admits that she is jealous of Bear and Niki's relationship, but she also says the sudden shift between the two of them feels deeply unnatural. Right then, Sarah receives rejection letters from several of the colleges she applied to. Even so, she is still waiting on one final letter from another school. Being a good friend, Bear tries to comfort her, and Sarah playfully snatches some of his food. Then Bear notices something in his lunch, a strange note describing how the cat tasted. And that is when the horror hits him. The food he has been eating is his own dead cat, cooked by Niki. Bear immediately vomits it all up.
Oh my God. Bear, are you okay?
That night, Ian and Bear head home together. Ian tries again to warn him about how Niki's behavior keeps getting stranger, how she has been terrifying Bear for days now. But Bear insists that he and Niki love each other, right up to this very moment. Ian still feels certain something is deeply wrong and keeps pushing. But Bear keeps defending her, insisting their relationship is perfectly fine. In the end, Ian invites Bear to a guys' night out on one condition: Niki is not allowed to come. Ian also plans to tell Sarah to stay away that night. When they pull up in front of the house, Bear plans to remind Niki not to do anything extreme, like cooking a cat ever again. But just as he is about to get out of the car, he spots the One Wish Willow packaging, and on the back he sees a customer service number. Without a second thought, Bear calls it and asks if there is any way to cancel or change his wish. The service rep explains that they do not handle requests like that. So Bear asks whether all of this is actually real, including the love he received from his wish. And when he asks what he is supposed to do next, the rep sounds genuinely shocked, surprised that Bear is even still alive. The rep explains that a wish can only be undone if the person who made it has died. As long as Bear is alive, he carries the moral responsibility to face the consequences of what he asked for. With no idea what else to do, Bear goes inside anyway. And there he finds Niki, disheveled, behaving even more strangely than before. She admits she just ate some insects, which upset her stomach and made her throw up. Feeling disgusting, she goes into the bathroom to clean herself up. Meanwhile, Bear, dizzy from everything happening, questions her again about whether she really cooked his cat and firmly tells her it can never happen again. Then he tells her that Ian invited him to a guy's night and that she cannot come. Niki instantly screams and refuses to accept it. She claims that Sarah personally called her and that Sarah is going to be there too. So in the end, Bear is forced to bring Niki along to the gathering. Soon they all start playing games and joking around together. But then Niki laughs in this wild, unnatural way that makes everyone deeply uncomfortable. The game continues, and Niki draws a challenge to read a poem. Instead of reading it normally, she delivers it in a bone-chilling way, like a psychopath issuing a warning to everyone in the room.
I'm more than your wife. I'm your sister.
Hansel flinched and reached for the door handle.
Then it is Bear's turn, and his challenge is to kiss the person next to him, who happens to be Sarah. That is when Niki stands up, scowling, and violently drags Sarah away. She screams that no one in the entire world could ever understand how enormous her love for Bear is.
This earth will ever comprehend what it feels like to love someone as much as I love you.
Ian asks if she is okay. Niki claims she was only joking and tells them to keep playing. But seconds later, she starts screaming hysterically again and does something extreme. She smashes a glass against her own head, throwing the whole gathering into chaos. Bear, completely lost on what to do, decides to take Niki home. Once they are back, he demands to know why she has to terrify everyone with her bizarre behavior. Niki confesses that she did it on purpose, because she saw how much Sarah seemed to like Bear. And that is when Bear finally understands that his wish was a mistake from the very beginning. He used to love Niki exactly as she was, but now that she loves him this obsessively, everything feels twisted and terrifying. He only wants the old Niki back, the one he knew, the one who loved him normally, not this version. So Bear asks her to go home, to give them one night apart, just some space. But Niki bursts into hysterical tears and refuses to be separated from him. She keeps begging him to keep loving her. She even admits that she can never go back to being the normal person she once was, which only makes Bear more certain that none of this is right. In the middle of the night, while Niki is sound asleep, Bear gets a message from Sarah asking to meet at the park because there is something important she needs to tell him. So Bear quietly slips out of the house to meet her. At the park, Sarah reveals that she received a letter from another college, and she wants to open it together with Bear. But she also unloads a secret about their little friend group that has been hidden all this time. For the past 2 years, Ian and Niki had been involved with each other, without any real love between them. And apparently Ian had always suspected that Niki's relationship with Bear had some hidden motive. That is the real reason Ian kept trying to get between Niki and Bear. It was never about caring. It was jealousy over how close the two of them had gotten. And right then, Niki appears out of nowhere. She smashes the car window, slams Sarah's face into the steering wheel, and the blow is so brutal that Sarah does not survive. After it is done, Niki turns around and apologizes to Bear. But in the same breath, she blames him for all of it. According to her, if Bear had never snuck out to meet Sarah that night, none of this would have happened. Niki then asks Bear to help her get rid of Sarah's body. And once they are done, Bear finally opens the letter Sarah brought. Inside, he discovers the truth. Sarah had been accepted into her dream school. That is the moment Bear decides he cannot let any more of this happen. He rushes back to the store and hunts down the One-Wish Willow. He storms in and starts yelling at the shop owner. Seeing how panicked and furious Bear is, the owner calmly invites him to let it all out, especially since Bear is raging even after getting exactly what he wished for. The man reminds him that he had actually printed plenty of warnings on the One-Wish Willow packaging. Bear insists he needs to cancel his wish, but the owner tells him that simply cannot be done. Instead, the man suggests that Bear find someone willing to make the exact opposite wish. So Bear buys another One-Wish Willow and takes it straight to Ian's house. When he gets there, Ian admits that he too has started noticing how strange Niki has become. Niki had been asking Ian to come to Bear's house, bombarding him with bizarre messages. Bear finally confesses that he made a wish using the One-Wish Willow. He never imagined the thing would actually work. Now he begs Ian to make an opposite wish, so everything can go back to normal. But Ian thinks Bear is making the whole thing up. As a joke, he says he would rather wish for $1 million than end up back with Niki. And suddenly, the entire house is flooded with thousands of bundles of cash raining down from above.
My friend Barry.
I wish for $1 billion.
Bear screams because his one and only hope just vanished into thin air. After that, Bear returns home to face Niki, trying to sweet-talk her by saying she would do anything for him. But he never expected what he would find. Niki has dragged Sarah's skinned body into the house. Moments later, Niki appears behind him, wearing Sarah's clothes and Sarah's real hair, which she has torn off the dead girl's head. Terrified, Bear pleads with Niki to do something for him, but Niki only screams, furious that Bear had disappeared, which leaves him even more frightened. Just then, Ian shows up, saying how happy he is to be a billionaire now, and Niki shoots him dead on the spot. Bear, panicking harder than ever, blurts out that he loves Niki more than anything, which softens her just enough to make her stop. Then Bear hands her a one-wish willow and asks her to make a wish. A moment later, he excuses himself to the bathroom to clean up. Inside the bathroom, Bear, drowning in desperation, considers doing the unthinkable to himself because he believes that ending his own life is the only way to save Niki and stop all of this madness. But right at that moment, he hears a one-wish willow snap in two. Niki has just made a wish of her own, and it seems she wished for Bear to be obsessed with her because suddenly he changes. He tries desperately to abandon his plan to die, scrambling to spit the pill back out of his mouth. But it is already too late. Bear steps out of the bathroom and looks at Niki with pure love and a warm smile, which she returns just the same. He moves closer to her, but then he collapses. Overdose takes hold, and Bear dies right there. Niki instantly breaks down at the sight of his lifeless body and starts trying to hurt herself because she cannot bear to live without him. But a few moments later, the effect of the one-wish willow finally fades, and Niki returns to normal. She stares in complete confusion at the horror all around her, and then she starts to sob uncontrollably, realizing the full weight of the nightmare she just lived through. So the moral of the story is, if a magical toy says one wish only, maybe wish for free pizza instead of a clingy relationship.